what? Guys, I have got to tell you, I am not quite sure this is what I expected. So for those of you that watched my Roster Mania video yesterday, thank you so much. That video is doing unbelievably well. I'm excited to continue talking about free agency, but I've got to tell you, this is not the move that I predicted. In this video, we're going to talk about the news. I'm going to show you the moves that I thought would probably happen in the CDL. And then we'll talk about the impact of this, where we see these players going and how these squads will end up in the end. So if you missed it, which I'm sure you haven't, it's been going like wildfire on Twitter. But if you take a look, this is the tweet that started it all from CRIMSIX saying he is a restricted free agent for 2022. Obviously, we can talk about restricted versus unrestricted. Whoever ends up wanting Crimsix is going to have to make some sort of deal for him. That is kind of irrelevant at this point in time. He's going to be playing somewhere else next year. So you got this from Crim. At the same time, you also got this from Vivid that says restricted free agent. Going into the next title, nothing but love for Dallas Empire for bringing me on the second half of the year. Looking forward to the future. Of course, this was the official release when it comes from Dallas, where it says, today we bid farewell to the three-time world champ and winningest player of all time. Thank you for bringing a world championship to Dallas, Crim. Absolute legend. And then we also got this from Hastro. And again, the second part of this tweet, you do have to have at least a bit of respect for, where he says, everyone already knows that, but they wanted to give Crim and Vivid enough time here, didn't want to delay or risk any opportunities that they might have going into free agency. So I do like the fact that they went ahead and they gave them this opportunity. They're basically the first big dominoes to fall here. So the scene that's out there will pretty much be wide open for Crim. And if we're talking about the scene that is out there, let's go ahead and let's jump into the Roster Mania video where we ended up yesterday, and this should lay out some things. So as we bring up the graphics here, obviously I said yesterday that I really feel like the top three teams on this line here, as well as maybe Minnesota, really aren't going to be making any moves. But after that, I definitely thought that NYSL would be making moves. I thought that Dallas would be making a move, but I didn't think this would be the one. So if we focus in over on the left-hand side here, you can see that where I ended up yesterday, I have Clayster penciled in here on this roster, and that still might be happening, but the player that I had removed was Vivid. So Vivid, I no longer had up here. I did have him down here. There were some rumors about where he potentially might go, and we'll talk about those in a second. But what I did not expect, I thought maybe you would have a Crim and Clay reunion, and those two would be running it back. But now it seems as though Crim is no longer in the picture. But for me, I feel like I probably called the addition of Clayster. I think that is probably more possible now. I thought what we saw at the end of the Modern Warfare 19 season is that this was a squad that meshed really well together. You could hear even in those champs run, when it came to Modern Warfare, Clay was the one that was really hyping up the squad. Every time they would release one of those comms videos, it was always Clayster hyping up his squad. And who was the person he was hyping up the most? You got it. This seems like the most logical outcome for me. In fact, when this news dropped, I was DMing just a couple people from the scene, and it was a minute or two after this, I said, let's go Shotzi, Huke, Illy, Clay, let's run it back. And to me, it seems like the most logical option right now. I feel like if you're looking at this from what I had yesterday, when it comes to the breakdown that I had for Dallas, when I didn't have Huke in there, I thought maybe it was an option for Florida just because he needs an SMG duo. But when Clay was here, I felt, and I explained this in yesterday's video, that when it comes to this potential squad, you're not going to get the production out of the SMG position that you needed, right? Sure, the AR and the flex, if this was the squad, you better hope it's not a 3 SMG meta, because this would not work out the way that I have it slated right here. And if it is 2 SMG, 2 ARs, I feel like the 2 ARs would be fine for Dallas. But where we saw Dallas have the most success was earlier on in the year and later on in the year when Illy was in that flex position, right? In the middle of the year after they dropped Huke and they slotted in Fellow when Illy was running that second SMG, that was not the recipe for success for the Dallas Empire. So now that Crim is gone, I feel like as soon as you now put another top tier SMG next to Shotzzy, now all of a sudden you have a squad that can go out and automatically compete against some of those top squads in the world. Are they off the rip going to be as dangerous as Atlanta, as Toronto, as maybe even Optic or Minnesota? I feel like probably not right off the rip, but you give this squad some time to work together, some time to gel. I feel like, look out. They've already shown it in 2019. Yes, Crim was there, but this is probably the 4 most talented of that bunch. I thought going into last year that Crim would be the one that was gone. So if this works out, this would make total sense to me. I think it's the most logical, the most talented grouping of those 4 that were there in Modern Warfare. So now, if Crim is not there and Viv is not there, let's talk about the possibilities. So, first of all, I feel like when it comes to Vivid, the most logical outcome, I did talk about this, but I didn't want to pencil him in there in yesterday's video, is that if you're Vivid, I think this over to LA Thieves makes perfect sense. I feel like you already have the main AR and Octane, at least. I know it hasn't been official or anything, but that's just where I'm thinking. That's the most logical thing. That's where my senses are pointing me. So you get Kenny, you get Octane. Those 2 from the Flex and SMG can compete with anybody in the league. And I know that Kenny is not an SMG, but he has shown that he can run it. So if you have a 3 SMG meta next year by chance, I feel like Kenny can compete with the Celiums, with the Camis, with the Dashies, right? I feel like Kenny has shown that he can produce from that position. Not as well as he can from an AR position, but if it lands that way, he can do it. But say it's 2 and 2. I feel like you have Kenny, you have Octane for LA Thieves, Vivid and Draza. Will they be as dangerous as the Tiny Terrors, as Simp and Abizi? Will they be as dangerous? For instance, you look over at Minnesota Rocker with Attach and Standy, or with not Cami, but Kleenex and Bance. I don't know. I feel like they can be close, but that's definitely a roster that can compete. They're probably looking for another high-profile SMG. But anyways, that could be a potential landing spot there for Vivid. If we pull him out, let's talk about what potentially happens with Crim. So for me, what I have right here, and if you're Crim, let's just kind of throw it all against the wall right now. He's not going to go to one of those bottom 4, 5, or 6 squads, right? He's not going to go to Paris. He's not going to go to LAG. He's not going to go to London. He's not going to go to Seattle. I feel like when you're looking at this graphic, you can just take the bottom part of this graphic here and throw it out the window. He's not going to go there. This is the winningest player of all time. This is a 3-time world champ. He's not going to go to a place where he can potentially rebuild. So let's just take those options off the board. For me, the thing that makes the most sense, or at least where I was at the end of yesterday's video, is that if you're Slasher, you could immediately go to NYSL, and that's a squad that can compete, right? Hydra and Asim have already shown that they can compete at the highest level in respawns. There was a point in time when Hydra first jumped into the CDL. New York was the best during, I believe it was like stage 2, stage 3, around that area. New York was the best hardpoint team in the game. So those 2 have already shown that they can compete, which is why I figured that would be an attractive place for Slasher. But things have changed a bit now. Let's say that is not the landing spot for Slasher. And if it's not, I feel like this could be a spot for Crim. So again, I'm not quite sure how this would match up, but it seems pretty apparent, at least to me, that he's not going to be going to FaZe. He's not going to be going to Ultra. Probably not going to be going to Optic. If something like this were to happen, if Formal gets dropped and somehow Crim makes his way back to Optic, that would be unbelievable, right? That would be a story for the times. I'm not quite sure I see it happening, but you would definitely be making some waves if that is what would happen, but I just don't see it. Now, the other part of this that I also don't see is I'm not quite sure Sib and Crim play together. I think that's a little bit out there. So what might be some other options if Sib is now not the answer there? Mac was obviously the flex that was there. If you move Mac back into NYSL, I feel like this is a pretty good squad. I feel like a lot got thrown on Mac's plate this year, and I feel like he played pretty well. If you put Mac next to Crim, you have that SMG duo. I really do feel like this is a squad that can compete. They've shown with Clay in that main AR, this same exact roster with Clay as the main AR, they've shown that they can compete for major titles. So you put Crim in there, I feel like you have a squad that Crim can work with. I don't know if he's as patient as Clay might be in that position, but if you're looking for a landing spot when it comes to Crim, I feel like NYSL is one that makes sense. You could also look over towards Minnesota. If you were to take out Major Maniac and throw Crim in there, this is another spot where this squad has shown that they can win major titles. So this is another option. However, I don't know if I'm Minnesota, I just don't feel like I want to do this move. If I'm Minnesota, I am hoping that I can go into next year's Call of Duty Vanguard and have the same exact squad that I had at the end of Black Ops Cold War. So is that a potential landing spot? Maybe. The only other option, I did have Mac over here potentially on this Seattle roster. There has been some discussion that maybe Skies and Awakening don't end up playing together next year. And if that's a move, I could see potentially Awakening going here. And if you have Awakening, Crim, Asim, and Hydra, that is another squad for NYSL that could absolutely compete in every single one of those majors. I feel like at the end of Champs, you had 4 teams per se that were really buying for that title there in Black Ops Cold War. I could have seen, at least at the beginning of that Champs run, Atlanta, Toronto, Dallas, and Minnesota being squads that could win that title. And now I feel like with Crim on NYSL and any mixture of that flex, whether it be Awakening or it be Mac, I feel like that's a potential winning roster there. So, oh boy, there's a lot of stuff going on here. I'm not quite sure, based on what I see in front of me, that there's any other landing place out there for Crim. I don't think he's going to go to one of those bottom squads. So NYSL right now makes the most sense to me. How are you guys feeling about it? Put it down in the comments. What do you see? I love seeing your comments. I love seeing your thoughts. I love the interactions that happen in the comments. So I'll be interested to see what you guys put down below. If you're new around here, you enjoy this sort of content, make sure you go ahead, hit that subscribe button. Every time there is a release like this, we're going to go ahead, we're going to revisit our charts, we're going to see what we got right, what we got wrong, how that impacts the scene, and different options that'll be laid out in front of us. So make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of that. Leave a like as it helps out the channel. And with that, thank you guys so much. We will see you in the next Roster Mania video.